Hello, 'tis I, Fat Cow. I am in a lot of pain currently. My knee hates me and my hip is definitely expressing an opinion. The problem is I am loath to move, which I haven't done for the last hour and a half because of this. Not my boobs. Ignore the boobs. This is squid. Squid very rarely sits on me because she prefers my eldest child. She's adopted my eldest child. My eldest child belongs to Squid. And so I don't get sat on by Squid very often. And so when I do, I don't want to disturb her, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. I will reach a point where I absolutely have to, but I'm putting it off. In addition to Squid, I also have Rocky. Yes. I belong to Rocky. I also belong to Pebbles. So, anyway, that's not what this video is about. This video, let's give a bit of a backstory. September last year, I was an unknown. Not that I consider myself known, but anyway. And I produced a series of videos. These videos are the videos that put me on Foodie Beauty's radar. But these videos got somebody's attention because these videos, let's say, provided a lot of evidence that debunked the claims that Foodie has been making for the last 2.5 years. So I thought, why not smush them all together and make the definitive Fat Cow you're talking out of your arse Foodie Beauty video. So that's what I've done.
So also we got into the courtroom and we stood in front of 2 judges, and they basically asked me, they wanted to make sure that I accepted the marriage with Salah and that he did pay me the, I think they call it mahr, if I'm pronouncing that right. It's something that Muslims in most Islamic countries do. The husband has to pay legally, give a gift, monetary gift to the wife, and one during the marriage as well. So that's, I did, that's personal as well, but we agreed to.
Didn't Foodie just say that Salah is obligated to give her money monthly as part of the marriage contract? When I was married, I was given a dowry. I nominated an amount that I expect to receive upon our marriage possibly ending. It's like a security blanket. There was no other monetary requirements to be performed throughout the marriage. Now, because I legitimately loved the man I was about to marry, I set my dowry at what is equivalent to 2.5 British pence. It just had to be a amount.
But it's every marriage that happens here. So also they asked me where my father was, which really was an odd question to me because it just really, but it, it made me realize how important father figures are in the lives of women here.
They could also be asking where your father was because you weren't actually at a wedding and you were at a different thing that involves courts where you were asking for a judge to stand in for your father, called a wali, but this will pop up a bit later.
So as parental figures, the family structure is very, very sacred here. So you don't have many single parents, if I don't know, if any, unless, even if women are widowed or whatever, or divorced, they usually seek another husband.
Unless you are independently wealthy or have a wealthy family or you're upper class, it's very difficult to get a divorce, and a lot of families will stick together regardless, because divorce is frowned upon, particularly in the lower classes. So it's not a case of the family being so important that they stick together through thick and thin, because that's how it is. It's more a case of having no effing choice. This is a generalisation, obviously. I'm not, denouncing or degrading anybody, but imagine how difficult it was for women and how unusual it was in the 1970s in the West, and you'll pretty much get an idea. Marriages lasted because getting separated or divorced was shameful and frowned upon and difficult, and living as a single parent, as a woman, after a marriage was shameful and difficult. It's pretty much the same thing.
Salah had to explain for me. He's so supportive in ways I can't even tell you guys.
How do you know what he said? You have his word that what he said to the Arabic speaking people in Arabic, that what he said was what he said. You only have his word for it. And if this happened when you actually claimed it happened, which is around the 6th of November and not in January when this video was uploaded, you had physically been in his presence for 4 effing days. So how would you trust him to be saying what you claim he said he was saying? If that makes sense.
And yeah, so I am so happy.
There are 3 types of religious marriages in Islam. Oh dear. Did I really make videos like this? Oh well. I guess we can consider this progress. Or not. Depends on your point of view. 2 of which are recognised by Islam and 1 that is forbidden. Out of the 2 that are religiously recognised, only 1 is considered legal in a court of law. The following does not include civil marriages, which every couple would have to undertake in order for their union to be legally recognised. Misya. This is a marriage that has conditions that break away from what is expected from the couple. The bride will waiver her rights to accommodation and or financial support, or even the obligation to have children. These are more common in second wives, divorcees, widows, or elderly spinsters, and requires a wali, a male guardian, and 2 witnesses. As long as the marriage is public knowledge, Islam will acknowledge this union. If publicly acknowledged, this marriage holds some weight with the legal system, but only under Sharia law, not civil. If not publicised, it is considered haram, forbidden, religiously. Anfri. Anfri is a religious marriage that is publicly acknowledged but does not have any witnesses. It is recognised religiously but not legally. Urfi is a religious marriage that is also kept separate. It has no legal standing whatsoever and is usually used as a get-out-of-free card to circumnavigate premarital sex. It is considered haram. As previously stated, a misya marriage is a type of marriage where the spouse agrees to give up on certain rights, such as living together, equal division of rights and financial support. Please note that under number 3, you still require civil ID or nationality certificate for the Kuwaiti applicants, a civil ID or passport for resident applicants, and additional documents that is recognised by the Kuwaiti government. Foodie does not have any of these for even a misya marriage to be recognised. Both religiously and civilly, marriage requires the presence of a wali, a male guardian for the bride.
usually her father, uncle or brother. If one isn't available, the bride will have to obtain permission from the court for a judge to stand in his place. Only in cases of religious necessity, such as pregnancy or exceptional circumstances, can this be waived, but it is extremely rare. To get permission from the court to get a judge to stand in as a wali, you need to visit the family court, submit an application, provide the necessary documents, attend a hearing, then wait for the court's decision.
I'm of the personal opinion that if anything happened at the courthouse, it was application for someone to stand in as a wali. But that didn't do anything else. It would look quite formal, like a wedding. It would include various judges, and in Arabic you could assume that's what was going on. It will look like a marriage because it has to involve the bride and the groom, but it's not. It is the first step towards. Maybe Salah did the first step because he did intend to marry Foodie legally, but never took it any further.
Even then, you cannot get legally married unless both bride and groom have residency, civil IDs and valid passports.
They went to the courthouse to apply for a judge to represent Foodie as a male wali. I can't think of the English equivalent at the moment. And then subsequently Salah found out that it couldn't be taken any further because Foodie doesn't have residency or a civil ID. The courthouse was applying for a wali. It wasn't a marriage. It was the very, very first step that would need to be taken, but then it turns out there are many other documents that are needed to get legally married. They are not categorically 100%, never have been and never was legally married.
There are no other ways you can legally get married in Kuwait if you do not have residency and a civil ID. As stated in the aforementioned video, both couples have to provide a certificate of no impediment, CNI, 21 days prior to the ceremony to confirm that they have never been married, or if previously married, that it is no longer current through death or divorce. On the actual day, both bride and groom must present their civil IDs, a valid passport, and show their residency stamps in said passport. To receive a civil ID, the expat must first get residency. To get residency, the expat must either be sponsored by an employer or sponsored by a Kuwaiti national. The sponsor applies for a non-objective certificate, which they will send to you before you travel to Kuwait. This can take months. Upon entering Kuwait with the NOC, you will also have to provide an extensive medical certificate, which includes your HIV, AIDS, hepatitis and tuberculosis status. Only then will you receive the residency stamp. Speaking of residency and visas, let's take a more in-depth look at those, shall we? Firstly, I tried to understand why Foodie would need to leave Kuwait for a 28-day period every year. After extensive investigation, I discovered the formula. 3 e-visas a year, which have to be applied for out of country, allowing you to stay for 90 days each, equals 270 days, plus 2 permitted extensions on tourist visa, the maximum number of extensions allowed in a year, of 30 days each, equal an additional 60 days. Total so far 330 days. Duration of time to process the e-visa, which again has to be done from another country, takes 3 days for an additional 6 days, accounting for a grand total of 336 days, leaving a suspiciously convenient 29 days needed to be spent out of country, Kuwait, for the year.
Salah and Foodie Beauty marriage timeline that we know of. First mention of seeing someone was 3rd of October 2022. First hijab video was the 5th of October 2022. Foodie introduces Salah Sultan
on the 7th of October 2022, and the travelling from Canada to Kuwait video was published on the 2nd of November 2022. First sighting of the wedding ring was the 6th of November 2022. First mention of getting married, 8th of November 2022. Our courthouse wedding video was uploaded the 16th of January 2023. Married after 1 month video was the 15th of April 2023, and 1 year anniversary video was the 11th of November 2023. All the information I'm about to provide is based on the assumption that Salah has Kuwaiti residency or had residency at the time of marriage. That means he would have had to been sponsored by an employee or a Kuwaiti national. Whether he still holds residency today is unknown, as he would have had to be employed and or notified the authorities of changes of employment. As far as being self-employed, as an expat, Salah would need the majority of his business to be owned by a Kuwaiti. So let us assume that, at the time of marriage, that he had residency and a civil ID, both of which are necessary for an expat to get married in Kuwait. More about that later. Two expats can legally get married in Kuwait provided they meet the civil requirements. The Ahmadi Urigaya Shaira Civil Court will accept applications for marriage from people of any nationality. Both couples have to provide a certificate of no impediment, a CNI, 21 days prior to the ceremony to confirm that they have never been married, or, if previously married, that it is no longer currently applicable due to death or divorce. If Foodie and Salah got married on the 8th of November 2022, although Foodie was seen wearing the ring on the 6th of November, the CNIs had to be submitted between the 16th and 18th of October at the very latest. Foodie only announced she was seeing Salah on the 3rd of October and introduced him on the 7th. The process of obtaining a CNI takes 28 days. Foodie and Salah would have to have applied for the certificate between the 17th and 19th of September 2023. On the actual day, both bride and groom must present their civil IDs, more about that later, a valid passport, and show their residency stamps in said passport. More about that later also. To receive a civil ID, the expat must first get residency. To get residency, the expat must be either sponsored by an employer or sponsored by a Kuwaiti national. The sponsor applies for the No Objection Certificate, NOC, which they will send to you before you travel to Kuwait. This can take months to obtain. Upon entering Kuwait with the NOC, you will also have to provide an extensive medical certificate which includes your HIV/AIDS, hepatitis and tuberculosis status. Obtaining the certificate takes 10 days, which means Foodie needed to apply for it on the 22nd of October 2022. Only then will he receive the residency stamp. If Foodie entered on the 2nd of November 2022 with the NOC, unlikely, it would have taken a further 10 days to receive a civil ID. In other words, on the 13th of November 2022, 5 days after they announced their wedding and 7 days after Foodie was first seen wearing the wedding ring.
Right, so I think I've given enough evidence to show that Foodie and Salah cannot legally be married. So let's take a different diversion and look at the beginning of their marriage and a bit of poop gate, let's say. For the purposes of this video, imagine that I am a tall, slim, bearded Arab man in my late 20s, with noodle arms and a really small understanding of the concept of sarcasm. And for the purposes of this video, my name is Halas. I've just met my future wife, aka the target, the mark, the victim, who we shall also call Moody Judy. And I'm about to take her home to my apartment, which, let's be honest, is not exactly how I described it. Judy is under the impression that I have a good place, one that is suitably furnished and who has all the necessary amenities, one that is suitably furnished and has all the necessary amenities, that it is the quintessential bachelor pad, but more than enough for a young, newly married couple. What I have is, in reality, a very standard studio apartment for a man in my position in the country that I reside in. By North American standards, did I mention that Moody Judy is North American? It'd probably be considered not even fit to be a student accommodation, and definitely would not be passing any housing inspections. The point is, it is not what Judy is expecting, and it is not what Judy is used to. The scene. The front door to an apartment. Halas. Welcome to our new home, Habibti, Tafali. Halas, on seeing the smile drop from Judy's face, to be immediately replaced with rage, an emotion that, up until this moment, Halas was unaware of that his bride could display so instantaneously, and with such ferocity. Halas, my sweet love, you look unhappy. Judy, her lips pulling back in a snarl, her eyes blazing with the fury of 1,000 suns. You're kidding, right? Halas, what? Judy, you've got to be joking. You expect me to live here? You said that you had a nice place. You said that you had everything I needed. You said that I would be happy here. You said that you would give me everything I wanted. You said that you would look after me. You said that you had worked hard to make everything as comfortable and as welcoming as possible. You lied. You're a liar. You lied to me. Halas.
But Habibti.
Judy. But what, Halas? What? You lied. You're a liar. You're just as bad as everyone else. How could you do this to me? You said you loved me. You said you would do anything for me, that you would protect me and look after me and give me everything I wanted and needed. Me.
Halas, you told me you were smaller.
Judy?
Halas, you lied. You said you were chunky.
Judy. But... Halas.
You're at least twice the size of what you told me you were. At least. You said you were chunky.
Judy. That's not the same. Halas.
You lied. You're a liar. You lied.
Halas and Judy continue to argue in the same vein for the remainder of the evening and long into the night, spending their first night together fluctuating between shouting at one another and solely silence. And so, the fairy tale begins. Before we start, I want you to notice that Foodie has her sassy pants on. So for this video, and this video only, Foodie will be referred to as Chantel, as befitting to those who are wearing their fanciest of sassy pants. Chantel only wears her sassy pants when she's trying to refute a rumour or an accusation, while also wanting to appear as if she absolutely, without question, and don't you mistake it, gives a shit about said rumours and accusations. It's also worth noting that the more scandalous the rumour or accusation, the darker the lipstick. If it's the dark red, it's usually because Salah has been caught doing something of an intimate nature with someone who is not, in fact, Chantel herself. But don't worry about any of that nonsense. As long as Salah makes sure his face is not in any of the evidence, he'll get away with it. Because as we all know, no face, no case.
So today's subject is actually something I've been wanting to talk about sort of since I got here. I feel like people have already talked about this ad nauseum, but maybe you should hear it from me. So the apartment that you're seeing circulating online before we lived here.
Bathroom. This is the bathroom for the room I want to rent. And this is the kitchen. This is the room. You see? Already it's big room and they make it half and they make like gypsum board. This is the room, like 3 meter by 4. This is the kitchen. This is the bathroom. At least the door of the bathroom little small and the bathroom already 1 by 1.5. This totally the room.
Photo of Salah's apartment as provided by Foodie.
Was Salah's apartment. And I stayed there after we were married. I'm really trying hard not to address rumors and negativity because it just keeps going and going. Salah comes from a family home. He lived with his father and his sisters, and he decided at some point to move away and get some independence on his own, and therefore he found I guess you would call it like a bachelor pad. It was all he really needed, was just a small place for himself.
Ah yes, all he needed for when he had guests over.
And he was working and living on his own and doing his own thing.
Salah's own thing.
He was living on his own for about 2 years. And after we were married, I stayed with him there. This is our first time being together alone, and he did a lot to prepare the place for me and make it more comfortable for me. As you can see, I'm a very large-bodied woman.
I don't understand why this was brought up in this video. It's so random and out of context and doesn't lead to any further discussion, unless the rest was edited out. I suspect it was a point of discussion between Salah and Chantal though. I want you to stop and imagine for a moment that you are Alas, and you've just seen Moody Judy in person for the first time. Up until then, you've only seen her on a tiny screen on your phone or on your computer monitor, and presumably on all of these occasions, you've probably only seen her from the shoulders up, or maybe, if you were lucky, from the boobs up. Additionally, and probably unknown to you, you've only ever seen her highly filtered. In other words, you've only seen what she wants you to see. If she sent any pictures, they would be very similarly shot to those that she had put on Tinder. Pictures like this. You know she's a larger woman. You've seen her videos. But what you have failed to grasp is the sheer magnitude of her actual dimensions. And indeed, how short she really is also. So there you are, at the airport, and before you, put in a trolley full of luggage, is your future bride, almost as round as she is tall. Can you imagine?
So he did things for me that just made me feel like he really appreciated my company.
Oh, don't tell me. He opens doors for you.
So as I was traveling and when I arrived here, he would send me pictures.
So, as I was travelling and when I arrived here, he would send me pictures. Go on.
Showing me the progress he was making.
Showing me the progress he was making. Hang on, what? He was sending you pictures of the apartment while you were on the plane and after you arrived? Chantal, make this make sense.
He set up his place to make it more comfortable for me. He did mention that he was thinking of moving to a bigger apartment.
Of course he did, love. Of course he did.
And that was his plan all along.
Yes. Yes, it was. It was his plan. All along.
Whenever he married, he would move into a bigger place. And we actually have a lot of plans to travel in the future, so there's no point for us in investing too much into a place here at the moment.
Indeed. That sounds like a rather convenient excuse. Sounds like the kind of excuse one may make if one was to justify not spending a lot of money on something others might think is significant. Sounds like the kind of excuse someone would make in order to placate someone who was maybe a tad angry. Wouldn't you agree?
Back to the old place. I will show you some pictures here that Salah has sent me in showing me the preparations. I will show you some pictures here that Salah has sent me in showing me the preparations as they were happening. He did a very big deep clean of his place, rearranged things. He did purchase a larger bed as he had a very small bed before. He got me some Bath and Body Works candles because I did say that I really enjoyed those. So he went out of his way just to like do little things like that would make me comfortable.
As we are about to learn, things such as buying a bigger bed, deep cleaning the apartment, buying bath and body candles, having the air conditioner on to cool the apartment before she entered, and lowering the air conditioning down to 22 instead of having it at the temperature he prefers, which is 25. Wow. Wow. He really went so far out of his way to accommodate your needs. I'm surprised he was ever able to financially recover from it. Other men must quake in his husband material presence. Other women must be pulling their hair out and wailing at the fact they will never, ever be that lucky.
You will notice in a lot of the pictures there's a lot of red light.
Yes indeed. In all one of the pictures you showed of the apartment, there is indeed a red light.
I guess just for mood setting, we really like to have that light on most of the time instead of the yellow light.
Did we, Chantal? Did we really prefer that light? Or was it the only light the apartment had? I mean, if you loved it so much, why haven't we seen it in your other apartments?
So even though the apartment was small, it was quite charming.
Chantal uses the word charming in the same way that I use the word special.
I didn't come to Kuwait for an apartment. I came to Kuwait to be with my husband and make travel plans.
And everyone knows how well that will go in the future.
So yeah, that apartment, I know it doesn't look like much to most. There were a lot of good memories made there. Whenever I first got to the apartment, and I remember walking in.
And I remember walking in. Chantal, it was just over 2 months ago. It's not a fond memory from your childhood.
Just feeling almost right at home right away. The AC was blaring. It was so cute.
Ah yes, the most famous of Valentine gifts worldwide. A running air conditioner. It blows chocolates and roses out of the water every time. Sod diamonds. Give me a cold room anytime.
Like just little things like that to make me comfortable he would do. Like put the AC down to 22 even though he likes it on 25.
Oh Salah, you old romantic you.
I wanted to share this story with you a little bit and talk about, just the fondness I feel when I think about the old place, because it was our first time being together as husband and wife, and just the little efforts that Salah put into it to make me feel welcome.
Little efforts. Chantal, I couldn't have worded it better myself. And there we have it. A very short, brief, not at all to the point video that was the only video recorded to address the issue of Salah's first apartment. No going back and addressing the fact that she said he had a good place. No going back and saying that Maybe she exaggerated his qualities somewhat. A very brief, highly edited, it was cut so many times video that basically said, "Sweet Fanny Adams." If you watch the video in its entirety, I've cut out about 50% where she goes on about how many things Salah did to make the place more homely for her, and basically talking about the cats at the door outside the building apartment, remembering the street the apartment was on, and reminiscing about all the good times of all the things that were there so long ago. She was remembering and reminiscing the whole 2 months ago. She remembers when. She remembered when. I remember. Lots of very fond memories that you can sit back and think about on a rainy day. Anyway, what I think is that when they went inside and Foodie saw the apartment for the first time, which I would like to point out, it's actually a very, very standard apartment for a single Middle Eastern male who has gone to live by himself. It is very rare for single men in the Middle East to live by themselves, especially when they're younger than 25. They tend to stay with their parents until they get married, as a rule. The higher the class, the more likely they are to live by themselves. Bear in mind that Salah is actually a Syrian, not Kuwaiti. That makes a bit of a difference. But in terms of the type of apartment that a single young Arab man living in an Arab country could rent, what he has, what he was living in, is really standard. You do not live in a Middle Eastern country unless you're from the very high upper classes, maybe the upper middle classes, and have an apartment that to a standard that you would expect as a Westerner. The plumbing is always going to be dodgy. The sofas are going to be from the 1980s with all the garish patterns. I know this because I lived in a Middle Eastern country for quite a few years, and the furniture was also always as dodgy AF. The plumbing, if it worked, brilliant. There was more than the occasional cockroach. It's just the nature of the beast. There is no double glazing. If you have a sandstorm, which happens a lot, your house will be covered in this fine dark grey dust that has the same texture as sandpaper, basic sandpaper. Talcum powder. Horrific. Air conditioning comes as standard because it has to. But basically, you rent the apartment. The walls, there's no wallpaper. Don't expect that. The floors will be just concrete, or if you're lucky, tiling. Sometimes vinyl. If you have a washing machine, you're lucky. Hot water, you're lucky. Shower, you're lucky. So actually, Salah's place wasn't bad at all by the standards of a single man and what he is able to rent in a Middle Eastern country. But of course, it's not what he portrayed, and it's not what Foodie is used to. So I would imagine the first couple of days would be a lot of discussions about how he lied, this isn't what he said, and a lot of counter arguing saying that basically, I know I lied, I'm sorry, but I was ashamed. I didn't want to lose you. You're too important to me. The most important thing is that we get married and we start our future together. And also, as mentioned by Foodie, that the money is better spent on our future, on travelling, creating a home together, that we both starting from scratch. I'd also imagine, in part, I wouldn't have mentioned this at all if it hadn't been mentioned in the video. Very suddenly in the middle, and completely out of context, and without any justification as to where the narrative was going, Foodie mentioned, I am a very big woman. Now, I think this was in the forefront of her mind because I believe it was probably something that was brought up when Salah and Foodie were discussing the whole "you lied to me, this apartment's not what you said." Because, as we know, and self-reported by Salah himself, Foodie was larger and shorter than he expected. And so basically, a good way of disarming an argument is basically to be able to throw back, but you lied to me also. Okay? So what we got is a video of Foodie with her sassy pants on, doing the whole "I'm sassy" movement thing that I cannot do. Not even as a joke, because I'm not sassy. I can't do the whole you know that thing that Foodie does in videos when she's got her full face of makeup on, particularly the dark red lipstick, where she does this whole thing and she talks like this and her eyebrows are up and she's very, in a weird way, flirty when she's trying to say, "I personally could give a shit." That sort of thing. Well, we've got this in the video, slightly muted lipstick because Salah hadn't had a chance to do anything naughty yet. So basically, here she is doing her standard sassy pants, everything that you believe is not true, and even if it is true, who gives a shit speech, with all her mannerisms and all her things in place. And basically, right, it's not what she expected, it's not what she told us, it's not what she was told. But in the end of the day, who cares? Because I'm married and that's all that matters. Because even if it was a literal deal breaker, there is no way on this earth Foodie would have come back to Canada with her tail between her legs and basically had admit to her haters, "I was wrong, you were right, it was a con." Never, ever, ever in the history of ever. Even if the first apartment turned out to be a hole in the ground or a cardboard box under a bridge, Foodie would not have come back and told us, "You were right, guys, he was lying."
I wasn't cheated on with anything that moves. Like, there was never any physical cheating. There's no emotional cheating. Wanting to take a dump on someone is emotional cheating.
No, but expressing your desire to perform that activity on another person is.
No, it's called fetish, like something you're ashamed to talk to your wife about. That's the difference. So, you look for somebody grungier. I don't know. Like, it's the truth. What emotional?
You could argue that your deepest, darkest desires are extremely emotional.
Like 2 days of disgusting, like, stupid talk is emotional cheating. Since when? And like, if you plan on rubbing that in our face forever, go for it. It doesn't bug me anymore.
Yeah, it went a bit pear-shaped towards the end, a bit of a mishmash, but I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, I have to go now because it's Tuesday, and Tuesday is my least favourite day of the week. Why, you ask? Well, it's bin day, garbage day. I hate bin day because bin day always ends with me being in a lot of pain. "But fat cow," you will be shouting at the screen. Well, actually, you won't even be considering it. "You have some children, some quite large children. Couldn't they help you?" Well, I would reply, if you had actually asked that question. No, because my two neurodivergent lovelies have particular dislikes that do not facilitate the helping of me on bin day. One really doesn't like unpleasant or strong smells. T'other doesn't like anything that feels yucky or weird. Subsequently, no, I do not get help with bin day, and I wouldn't ask them to because I don't want to cause them anything unpleasant. And the cats definitely don't help, and the cats are responsible for a good third of the rubbish anyway. Anyway, I am waffling on, so I shall go, and I hope you enjoy whatever the F this video is.